Hi guys, hello, welcome to another video, and today uh, um, we're watching a creepiest abandoned theme parks you don't want to visit. Bye. Be amazed. Okay, let's get into it.
The theme park, a magical place where you get to stand in line for hours and fly through the air in rickety vehicles operated by teenagers. Despite the fun to be had in one that's up and running, theme parks tend to get extremely creepy when they go out of business. Ruined by desertion, dilapidation, and even death, here are the creepiest theme parks you don't want to visit. Six Flags, New Orleans. New Orleans' version of the famous chain began life in 2000 under the name Jazzland, aiming to be centered around New Orleans heritage. Jazzland was bought out by Six Flags in 2002 and was popular with locals and visitors alike. That is, until total disaster struck in the form of Hurricane Katrina in 2005. The park was under 7 feet of brackish water for over a month, which damaged its rides and infrastructure beyond repair. Many of its rides have now been removed, but the park retains a mixture of gloominess and a certain excitement due to the fact that alligators now live among the remnants of its water rides. The park does see some human footfall, though. It's been used in the filming of Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, Jurassic World, and other movies, and is popular among the many brave urban explorers of YouTube. Dinosaurland, England. If Jurassic Park is anything to go by, dinosaurs can be pretty terrifying, but they're even scarier when they're cracked, filthy, and covered in mold. When Dinosaurland, a prehistoric-themed park in Tamworth, England, shut down over a decade ago, its eerie inhabitants were left inside. The park that once invited guests to explore the wonders of a lost age has now itself been lost to the ages. There are dusty dinosaurs lurking around every corner, as well as uncanny cavemen that are now covered in cobwebs. Spree Park, Berlin. Also known as Culture Park Planterwald, Berlin, this park was found in East Germany. Both the park and country exist in the past tense now, since Germany was reunified in the 1990s.
Okay guys, I did not fart, that was just the noise I made. I don't know how I did that. I think it was that. I think I did it like that. I don't know.
Despite its popularity during East Germany's Soviet occupation, attendance fell as the century waned, and Spree Park closed in 2002 due to a lack of visitors. The story didn't end there, though, as the park's owner took some of the rides with him in giant shipping containers when he moved to Peru, in a failed attempt to establish a new park. On his return in 2004, he was found to be using the rides to smuggle 180 kilograms of Peruvian nose candy into Germany, and both the owner and his son were arrested. In the years that followed, the park was ravaged by decay and even arson, leaving nothing more than a sad, eerie place for anyone unlucky enough to visit. Dogpatch, Arkansas. This Deep South-themed park was designed to look like an old-timey hillbilly town and ran from the late 60s until the early 90s. Based on a fictional town from the comic strip Lil Abner by cartoonist Al Cap, the park featured everything from a fishing pond to caverns and even horseback riding. There were even characters with folksy names like Hairless Joe, who would walk around the park and interact with visitors. I like to imagine that the actors still roam the park today, complaining that things ain't like they used to be. In 2002, the park went up for sale on eBay for $1 million, but received no bids. With the rundown shacks, collapsed sculptures, putrid ponds, and pervasive coating of rust, it's hardly surprising. Lincoln Park, Massachusetts. This northeastern ghost park was a popular destination for over 6 decades after its inception in the 1920s. Even the Kennedys reportedly frequented the park, but then, in 1986, a fatal accident on the Comet, a wooden roller coaster, initiated the park's unraveling. People grew skeptical of the park's safety standards, with further near misses involving dilapidated equipment and coaster brake failures. Visitor numbers fell steeply. Lincoln Lincoln Park finally closed in 1987, and now all that remains is a collection of decaying wooden structures. Many of these have since collapsed, painting an eerie, jagged picture of a place that once held joyful memories for so many people, a place that is now haunted by the memories of the child whose death kickstarted the park's downfall. Pripyat Amusement Park. Unlike other parks around the world that thrived before abandonment, the Pripyat Amusement Park was never opened. The grand opening had been planned for May 1st, 1986, with the intention of being a park of culture and rest for the inhabitants of Soviet-occupied Ukraine. But on April 26th, the Chernobyl nuclear disaster struck mere miles away, and the park was left to rust in the middle of the now ghost town. Heading to the park today, you can see the decorations for the planned opening that never happened, alongside hopeful murals painted on the walls. Visitors today leave stuffed animals by the Ferris wheel, bumper cars, and swing boats as memorials to those who died in the Chernobyl disaster. The sad contrast between the innocent pastel-painted rides, the all-pervasive rust, and the knowledge of what caused its abandonment makes this one of the most harrowing places on Earth. It's one of the most dangerous, too, since non-concrete areas of the park still hold hazardous levels of radiation. Dunaj Vorosi Vidym Park. Yet another famous, abandoned Soviet theme park, Vidym Park opened in Hungary in 1952. True to the spirit of communism, it was totally free for visitors. It got all its funding from the Soviet government and enjoyed a decent run of 40 years. But when the USSR collapsed, the park shut down. Nowadays, smiling Hungarian children have been replaced with broken rides, spooky Soviet-era art/propaganda, and a huge spider-like structure overhanging the park. If you listen very hard, you can hear Lenin cursing his failed successors on the wind. Dadi Park, Belgium. Located near the French border in Belgium, Dadi Park was a kid-friendly park opened in 1950. After years of steady popularity and expansion, darkness began to seep through the cracks in the brightly colored walls. Though Dadi Park initially survived a series of minor accidents involving poorly maintained rides, attendance took a nosedive in 2000 after a 9-year-old got his arm chopped off in the popular Nautic jet ride. It closed for renovation soon after, but never reopened. Nowadays, nature is slowly reclaiming the area, giving a glimpse into how the world might look if an apocalypse wipes out a civilization. In a word, rusty. Gulliver's Kingdom, Japan. At the base of Mount Fuji lies a giant tied to the ground. He's covered in graffiti now, but he was once a gigantic model, representing the titular character from Jonathan Swift's Gulliver's Travels. The Japanese government funded many construction projects in the 90s to try and boost the economy, but an amusement park based around such a specific theme may not have been the wisest choice of investment. Indeed, Gulliver's Kingdom failed to attract enough visitors and closed merely 4 years after its opening in 1997. This was also likely a location issue. After all, I can't imagine parents were too eager to take their kids somewhere so close to Japan's notorious suicide forest, Aokigahara. Being located a few miles away from the most popular suicide destination in the world, besides the Golden Gate Bridge, doesn't exactly scream family fun. The surrounding area also once housed the headquarters of Aum Shinrikyo, a religious cult who murdered 13 people in 1995. The sinister history of the area, coupled with the obscure, mostly demolished